Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, dear colleagues. Please allow me to start with terminology by raising a simple, really simple question, which will lead us to a deeper understanding of the essence of co-production. What is a documentary? And why it is important to agree on the definition. Obviously, because if we want to co-produce, we should be certain that our potential partner has the same understanding of the subject matter as we do, that he, she or they want to produce an audiovisual work of art that is understood by the audience and the market as documentary. We should be able to speak the same language, otherwise we can not co-produce. So, what is a documentary? Who would like to risk an answer?
For me, it's about fixing our life.
You would like to know what is it for me? Just a film. Just a film. A film dealing with reality. Just a film. It is very simple. Allow me to continue. And please try to forget all the many definitions you may have heard through the many years of your academical and professional life, and see it as just a film, which is, to be frank, a bit different than the ones we usually see in the big screen, like feature film, art house movies, Hollywood, Bollywood and all the hoods. A bit different from the genres we usually watch or not watch on TV. I mean, TV films, plays, reality shows, musical competitions, current affair reportage, news, actualities, updates, the weather, the financial markets trend. A lot different than the YouTube funny films we all see and we all have. And audiovisual promotional of any kinds, like celebrity A has been there eating food and oh yes, they liked it very much. No, let's forget about it. It is just a film, but not a fiction movie as we know it. Not a fiction movie. I would say it is maybe more. It is educational entertainment or entertaining education, or even better, a magical journey to unknown territories. This unique feeling we get when we make or create or consume art. Documentary is all of the above and much more, and this is because I believe that we are lacking a good definition. This is why I believe that I prefer a simple one, just a film. A film dealing with truth, but not just truth and facts, questions and conclusions. Truth well told. Truth well told. This is very important. And this is also important because truth can be understood in many ways. It was always like that. We all have a different perception of truth. This simple sentence is ironically also the slogan of a worldwide operating advertising agency, McCann Erickson. This is the slogan. But it describes, I believe, accurately the essence of a good documentary. A story based on facts, a real story, but above all, a good one. A good one. It would be perhaps helpful to understand what is a documentary by mentioning what is not again. But we know it, don't we? So, an explanatory video on science, is that a documentary?
Скажем, научно-популярное какое-то обучающее кино, это документальное?
Yes, it is a documentary, but an educational documentary, we would say, before going into definition. A family video on YouTube, is this documentary?
Смешные ролики на YouTube, которые мы все смотрим, это документальное
Yeah, it's
кино?
documentary, of course.
No, it is archive material. It is not documentary because it doesn't have a story.
Sometimes it's documentary and more parts
then it's not a YouTube family film, then it's a documentary. But all my little son crawling around my desk while I'm working, no, this is not documentary. So we have to make this distinction, otherwise we diminish our profession. Otherwise we will never go further and we will never understand why we are doing all what we do and why we want to co-produce. So, you said it's a documentary. Who would like to co-produce it as a documentary? So, now, yes, this is not a sometime, because an even better way to understand the uniqueness of a documentary is the movie theater criterion. Only a film dealing with reality and facts that can sustain a theatrical release can actually be called documentary. That means that the attractiveness of the film is not depending on time and space. You can, so that is, in a way, that is a classical film. That's classic then. And this movie theater criterion is that a person is willing to pay money to buy a ticket to see your film. And that makes a documentary, a film, worth to be seen. And that is different than all these YouTube videos that we described before. Tell me, the reality shows are very in fashion, Big Chef, Master Chef, Survivor, Non-Survivor and all this. Could you imagine somebody paying a ticket to watch this in a movie theater? I cannot. That can never happen. The importance of storytelling is immense, and it appears therefore to be the sole criterion for the necessary distinction between a documentary and all those numerous audiovisual products that claim the title. Storytelling defines us as artists. So, I would like to make now to take a glimpse to the history of audiovisual art in a very particular way, because you may think that the audiovisual storytelling, which is what we do, is a phenomenon of the late 20th century, and that we nowadays are just enjoying the enormous advantages of the fourth revolution, the evolution of technology. Because what is happening now is we are experiencing easy filming. I call it easy filming, with practically every available device, which is easily accessible for everybody. I mean, who has an iPhone here or a smartphone? Okay, who has, no, wrong, who has not? Silence, yeah, because we all do. And it is a low-cost filming. So we film everything, not necessarily what is worth to be filmed. It is not certain, we are not sure when Homo sapiens created the language. It is not necessarily Homo sapiens as now we know that it was already from Homo neanderthalensis. They created the language. But what we know is that they started with the artistic documentation of reality. That was a long time ago, even before the Neolithic age. That was around 30,000 years BC, or can be even more, as many scientists believe. Scientists are still not certain if the caves like Altamira, the famous cave of Altamira in Spain, or Grotte Chauvet-Pont in region Pont-Rhône-Alpes in France, are domiciles of our ancestors or shrines. We still don't know it. Whatever they were decorated with amazing paintings on the walls. Can we please see the first clip? La Grotte Chauvet, that is and that is a promotional documentary of a region about a cave.
L'original est aujourd'hui gardée secrète, même si certains ont eu la chance de la visiter.
Quelle émotion devait être celle des
Yes, that is, as I told you, that is a promotional video
Lorsqu'un
of
jour
the region.
en 1994, ils sont arrivés dans cette caverne qui les a propulsés
And look what they
360 siècles en arrière. Peut-être la
Look,
même émotion que la
beautiful
mienne
images.
lorsqu'il nous fit découvrir cette grotte il y a quelques années et que j'ai senti cette peinture d'une modernité totalement incroyable, pratiquement contemporaine et pourtant
Have you seen a better storyboard?
des âges. C'est une émotion incroyable, rien que d'en parler.
Jean-Sébastien est des chansons, mais l'émission est natale aussi sur le nouveau site. Avec Valérie Préhistorielle, c'est parti pour un étonnant voyage à travers le temps.
Là, nous pénétrons dans la caverne, un paysage souterrain plus vrai que nature. On observe les beautés géologiques et aussi l'art que nous a laissé ces artistes de l'Aurignacienne.
L'Aurignacien, c'est le nom donné aux hommes préhistoriques qui ont fréquenté la grotte il y a 36 000 ans, soit près de 20 000 ans avant ceux de Lascaux. Sur les parois, ils ont laissé plus de 400
See,
représentations.
that is the big screen now. That is the big screen.
Le plus ancien de
They
l'histoire
were,
de l'humanité.
they were probably celebrating
Le
something.
bord de rocher, là.
Gilles est l'un des artistes à avoir travaillé à la reproduction de ses œuvres. Ce matin, avant l'ouverture, le guide profite de sa présence pour le questionner.
On observe que certains lieux ont deux yeux. Alors moi, dans ma visite, je parle de cubisme.
On peut parler de cubisme aussi, pourquoi pas, mais ça peut être aussi simplement une volonté d'insister particulièrement sur le regard des fauves qui sont en chasse.
Les gens, tellement c'est beau, ils posent la question du fait que...
Ils pensent que ça a été amélioré ici, dans la réplique.
Si je pouvais être là quand ils disent ça,
Une copie plus belle que l'original? Gilles préfère en rire.
pour faire les dessins, le plus simple c'était d'utiliser les mêmes outils que les artistes préhistoriques, c'est-à-dire de l'ocre rouge en poudre pour faire la couleur rouge et pour le noir, les charbons de bois, du pain. 36 000 ans plus tard, on est capable de reproduire à l'identique.
Une véritable prouesse.
So, as you saw these marvelous and very realistic pictures and hunting scene, they are paintings of a story, and they were admired by no less than Picasso himself. He commented on those, and it was considered as high art for him. But for us, it is the beginning of the audiovisual storytelling, because we don't know what the humans were doing. They were just drawing the environment. We don't know. They were picturing the dangers of their everyday life, so they could pass the information to the younger. So, were they explaining with this hunting scenes, okay, don't go there because there are dangerous animals, or go there. So, was it a kind of documentary, of on-stage documentary they were doing? That we don't know. We can only guess. But we can visualize clans, tribes, families gathering around the fire or not, or telling stories about their life, the future, the dangers, the fears, the dreams, and that we don't know. Or maybe it was a celebration, religious celebration of some kind. They were in this cave celebrating an adulthood of a child or something like that. We don't know, but what we definitely know is that they were the first humans that we know of. They could combine stories and pictures, text with images. So and that makes them the first audiovisual storytellers. So storytelling followed the mankind's evolution. The drawings in the caves were replaced by wall painting in walls of powerful urban centers, the palaces, palace in Knossos. That we know that it was religious, and we know that it was celebration, and so you can see it as a documentation, but it is a picture, a documentation of everyday life and how art started to get integrated in powerful people's everyday life.
Когда искусство как бы вошло.
That is, mythology was born. The tales, like this one, became meaningful and sophisticated. That is, the tale is the audio part. Unfortunately, the visuals could not follow, because we would need half of the world in a wall to draw the Greek or Indian mythology. That would be too much. Besides, there was no need, because writing was invented, and stories could be easily written down and understood by a broad audience. Mostly the king's men, though, because storytelling became a privilege of all those who were close to the court and the powerful and the kings, the oligarchs. When at around 500 BC, palaces were replaced by parliaments and kings by statesmen, not all over the world, just in the city-state of Athens and in most of its allies. For a rather short period of time, historians call it these 50 years golden age, governance was exercised by wise politicians whose power was the approval of their people, demonstrated by regular head elections. Approximately 50 years is nothing for history, it's not long, but it was long enough to give birth to a new form of audiovisual entertaining. Theater was born, following mythology. The next one is the famous theater in Delphi, god of the arts, so they say our little god. And the next one is should be Epidurus. So in all the known then Greek word theater, and mostly in democracies, theater was cultivated. Along with theater, writers, directors, costume designers, art directors, props buyers, makeup artists, sponsors, investors, funders, all of them, all of these professions and attitudes and art distinctions were created then. So the audiovisual industry is a child of democracy and free spirit, in a way. It was a new form of art with newly created needs and peculiarities, and as a child of democracy, this new art required demos, public, the audience, not just spectators as they were before, a cultivated, educated and often very participatory audience. That is theater. Can art be taught? What do you think? Can we teach art? Apparently yes, I would say, because right after this artistic explosion, that's Aristotle, who in his famous book Peripoetikis, or De Poetica as it is in Latin, Poetics as it is known in English, was dealing with the matter if art can be taught. And yes, he thought art can be taught, and he categorized the dramatic theory by examining theater in all its known forms, and by doing so he provided the first manual of audiovisual storytelling. We can see this book as the first manual of audiovisual storytelling. Among others, he described this famous three-structure pattern of a good story, and the manual is still valid, I believe. All explanations and assumptions we are until today, the solid, it is a solid fundament of a good story, and especially in fiction. A good story. Who can tell me a good story? Who has a good story? Okay. Let me try to ask you something. A middle-aged woman falls in love with a young man. She abandons her home and family. She goes with him. The ex-husband is upset. He refuses access to the children. They get divorced. But then the young man dumps her. she cannot deal in the situation and she commits suicide.
Ей очень тяжело, и она совершает...
Is that a good story? Yes, that is Anna Karenina. So, but the way I was describing it was just a lousy gossip story of a magazine. So it is always important, apart from the structure of the story, who is telling the story and how he is telling the story. That is very important. Not much changed the following 2,000 years. Theatre became the child of kings and tyrants, mostly, but was enriched with the opera, which is also a great audiovisual achievement. That was until 1895, when the Lumiere brothers invented a machine that could reproduce moving images. This invention marks the beginning of the cinematography, literally meaning downwriting of moving images, which later in 26 became the audiovisual industry. After this time it wasn't Aristotle, or it wasn't not the Lumiere brothers. It was the Warner brothers who added sound to the movie. In the famous movie Don Juan with John Barrymore, the same artist, John Barrymore, became also the first voice of cinema, because in 27, in the film The Jar Singer, the audience could hear a bit more than just sounds. They could hear few words coming out of John Barrymore's mouth. Welcome to the show business. This is where we come. This is the show business. The sound in moving images was a game changer then, smooth and determined at the same time, just like digitalization, that little by little changed our perception of reality and filmmaking, happening now as we speak. Can you please pass it? From this side, can you please make a round? After having defined the documentary as a film, we should try to focus on the actually few but crucial differences between fiction and non-fiction. And I'm not talking about budget here. Although it is true that documentaries have a significantly lower budget than fiction films, but that is not the issue here. We are not here to talk about budget. Because we simply don't have it. The main issue is the storytelling, the script. In script we trust. Script is our currency. Just like in this dollar bill, you see, in God we trust, in documentary, in script we trust. In film, we trust the script. Script is our currency. This is what we buy, sell, this is what inspires us, this is what a good script makes us, first of all, want to make a film. We read it, we like it, and then we try to realize it. We sell a script to our investors, funders, to film commissions, broadcasters, etc. We may modify it, adapt it, but everything we do, all our actions are based on a book, on a script. When we approach a co-producer, we develop a script together, not after, before, right? We agree on the changes, we agree on a budget and a financing plan of the script. We develop a modus operandi together, based on a script, the book, the scenario. In fiction, that is. In documentary, we don't have one script only. In documentary, we write the script 3 times. It is one time while researching and developing, the second time at the shooting, which is a very demanding process, by the way, and the third time while editing. Give us the flexibility we need as we serve reality and facts, but also requires an in-depth relationship with our co-producers, as we are obliged to agree on all changes depriving from this acceptance. Thank you for bringing the budget, Mark. That is a good revenue. Thank you. A documentary, another equally important difference than the 3 times writing, is the establishing shot. Many of you know my obsession with an establishing shot. The introduction, the information needed to make the audience what our film is about. A documentary needs an establishing shot. We mentioned De Poetica before, the book by Aristotle, which scientifically described and explained the mechanism of the new audiovisual wonder, the theater. Aristotle was addressing to the world as he knew it. Theater was drama, comedy, tragedy, human stories in a historical background, known to everybody from the audience. The content was very familiar. The audience was feeling the story. They knew the story. Among the spectators were many who have fought in the battles described or serving as a background. We know that sometimes in theater people were crying because they were thinking back of the battles or of the people they lost. It was back different then. There was no need of introduction of this kind. The canvas of the story, with all facts and stories, was common knowledge. So naturally Aristotle didn't pay much attention to an establishing act and concentrated his observations on the development of a compelling story, the characters and the turnovers. We don't have the luxury of pure storytelling of the feature film, unfortunately. Where the establishing shot, the introduction, can easily be replaced by the texture of the story. Imagine we see crime and punishment in a film. We really don't need an establishment. The story is strong enough, we can understand the plot, everything. In this case, an establishing shot can be the historical background. It's just added value. The story speaks for itself. Documentary is, as you know, different. This 3 times writing, as we described it above, creates different obligations if we, of course, want to take advantage of this immense artistic freedom and benefit from reality as an ongoing script-on process we later need to integrate. Are we all clear about the 3 times writing and why we do so? Because yes, we agree on the script with our co-producers, with ourselves, with our partners. We agree on the script, and in this script there is an interview of a person, and then we do the shooting, and while we're shooting, this person comes up with an entire new angle, a new story, a new information. So how are we dealing with this? Should we stick on the script? Of course not. We shoot it and then we try to integrate it in the story. That means we will, this is documentary, we have to change the script because we cannot change the reality. We cannot reshape the reality, but we can adapt our script. That is important. I'm deeply honored to be here with you in a festival with the name FLAHERTIANA.
На фестивале, который называется «FLAHERTIANA»,
and
честь этого великого режиссера.
Claudia and Kai, thank you very much for having me here. It's really a pleasure. I really enjoy being here with you and
Очень рад здесь быть.
deal with all these matters. So, there are 1,000 reasons to watch this film. I'm sure you all know it, you've seen it many times. The reason why we watch it within this lecture is to realize the importance of the establishing shot. Within 7 minutes, we have a full synopsis and character, presentation, a sense of time and space, a generous treat of reality, and yet the promise of a magical tour. Within 7 minutes, we know who is the someone, our protagonist and or the storyteller, why is someone doing something, motivate our protagonist and of the storyteller, what is the someone doing, logline, synopsis, the plot, the story, when is all this happening, and where all this is happening. The 5 essential W's of the documentary filmmaking, 5 key elements to create a good story. But clearly, as we've seen before, the 5 W's aren't enough. It strongly depends who is telling the story and how. It's pretty much like cooking. The 5 W's are the basic ingredients. It is the chef who creates a magnificent plate by combining the ingredients in the right proportions, in the right timing and everything. Of course, there are no rules in how an establisher can be integrated in the story. The next clip will demonstrate an entirely different artistic approach, nevertheless interesting as I think.
Я учредил интернационал неуправляемых торпед. Мы натворим немало бед. Мы будем взрываться, сами не зная когда. Может при слове «нет», а может при слове «да». Look down. Look down. That fragile bubble of life float on a sea of nothing.
They are the gibbons. They are related to orangutan, chimpanzee, gorilla, and humans. And they start every morning with a duet. The male and female join in a complex duet. They do this on a regular basis. They sing the same duet every morning of their lives. I started studying these creatures and their song because I think that just like the gibbons, humans have the same need to sing.
So that was Lucky People International Center by Eric Pauser and Johann Söderberg. A journey through some 20 countries they were, where existential issues are addressed and the participants have all taken stand against modern society, coming then, 98, and trying to make human life better. A question, it was actually a question about the meaning of life and if they are happy. Next definition. Have patience, please. What is a filmmaker? In many countries, filmmaker is the director. This is why I'm stating that a filmmaker is the person who makes the films. And this is what we should agree and understand. Is the producer is also a filmmaker, although he's not directing the film. A filmmaker is usually the director or the producer in motion pictures. There we have a distinction. In documentary, it is the person who is engaged in all phases of the production. Perhaps it would be again helpful to understand what and who is a filmmaker by mentioning what and who are not. A distributor is not a filmmaker. It can be a filmmaker, but then he is a filmmaker and distributor. The commissioning editor, he can has a background as a filmmaker, of course, but he is not a filmmaker. The narrator, the presenter, the actor, the politician, the musician, these guys are not the filmmakers. It is not a matter of title. It is strictly about who is doing what in a project. It is about split of responsibilities. It is an important technique in a well-functioning audiovisual project. Commissioning editor is someone who often has the know-how of filmmaking. He's actually the representative of the broadcaster, our main client. Is, and let's say the chief editor of a TV station. That is the commissioning editor. He's often responsible for the content And even the artistic direction of the film is the one who is trying to influence the director, is the one who is desperately looking for content. He's looking to, he needs content, he needs our film, or she needs our films to fill the program. But here is the crucial point, and especially in co-production. You see, there is no need to produce films. We need to produce milk, we need to produce food, because without it we die. We don't have to produce film. Nobody is obliged to buy our products. It is based on free will and market needs. Commissioning editors used to be very, very powerful. Commissioning editors used to be really very powerful because they were determining the content, and they were also responsible for the finances. They were most important persons. We were pitching to them, but we were also depending on them because there was no need to buy. They not necessarily. Why would they buy our film? Only if they wanted to, and only if it would fit their criteria. This is the reason why we are discussing here about co-production and co-production essentials. And what we were doing, we were pitching the projects to them. They were sitting in a table, in a panel, and then we were pitching the projects to them pretty much like we did yesterday. We had 5, 3 or 7 minutes. I've been told that ITFA is very... how much is in ITFA? Yeah, it's 7. Okay, that's a luxury. 7, you can tell a story. But I believe that things are different now. It's we have a situation where the broadcasters used to be the most powerful players in the past, now are a bit shaky because of all this Netflix, Amazon and YouTubes. They are all afraid that they will lose the audience. They will lose their millennials. They are very much afraid of it. So, yes, they are not so powerful anymore, but are still the ones who are until now our best clients. So, when we pitch projects, we pitch to this client. So, let's talk a bit about the art of pitching. Documentary is a challenging art form, and the uncertainty of fundraising can be really exhausting, as we all know. Pitching was invented in Canada by Pat Ferns and Rudy Boutignol. We talked briefly yesterday about it. I don't know who is the first one, but anyway, them two claim to be to have invented it. The idea was to create a useful tool for financing, a method to present a project in a way that could impress the commissioning editors, who were back then the sole decision makers. It worked in a way for more than 20 years. Various pitching fora across the world were competing with each other, trying to get established as the place where young filmmakers could complete their financing plan. Often, they had to adjust their vision to the needs of the powerful contributor. Filmmakers here had to constantly reframe their film to the funding broadcaster needs. That was wrong then, and that is still wrong, because that is then, as a filmmaker, you follow somebody else's dream, somebody else's needs, somebody else's vision, and many times you end up with a film that you don't want, you don't sign, and the broadcaster just gave a non-binding comment, because change your film so I like it is a non-binding comment. Otherwise, it would have been a contracted production, which is then different. Then a broadcaster gives us money and we make their films, but that is different than our own creative documentary as our own vision. Still, pitching has an immense value, but not in terms of fundraising. I think pitching is highly important for us because preparing for a pitch helps us realize the true potential and possibilities of our project. Preparing for a pitch means we know where we stand, we know what we have, we know what we don't have, we know what we are looking for. It is therefore we should be thankful for pitching. Only by trying to squeeze an often year-long research, endless discussions, artistic visions and aspirations into 2 pages, only then we can tell that we are ready to start shooting, and not before. Pitching needs multiple skills, content and timing, and most of all something again very simple and practical, a 2-pager. A 2-pager is condensed project information, everything your partner or client needs to know. It should include title, format, language, logline, synopsis, director's treatment, motivation, protagonist, budget information and delivery date. A carefully thought 2-pager is a condition sine qua non of a successful co-production. We will continue with the 2-pager. I'm laughing because we had long discussions yesterday about the 2-pager and why is this important and why and all that. So a carefully thought 2-pager is more than title, format, language, logline, synopsis, director's treatment and motivation, protagonist, etc. It is the film in text and must imply the project's unique selling point and the filmmaker's honesty and motivation. The unique selling point is the answer to the often painful question, why would someone want to see it? Or even more, why would someone want to invest in it? What makes your film special? Is it the subject matter? Is it the story? Is it the protagonist? Is it you? Keep these questions in mind while composing the 2-pager and try to highlight the point or the points that individualize your idea. Try to persuade yourself first and then the others. The market is extremely competitive. Your unique selling point will help you stand out and make your project attractive to helpers and investors. A 2-pager should be constructed with and around it, should reflect your research results and your artistic intention. A 2-pager is the project's business card. But is it enough? Of course not. You need a trailer that demonstrates your honesty and your ability to deliver what you have promised in your 2-pager. It is once again Robert Flaherty who demonstrates how important it is to keep your promises. We have watched a paradigmatic establisher in the Nanook of the North, an example of establishing shot and a 2-pager content combined. Within the first 7 minutes of the film, the viewer knows what to expect, whether he or she are intrigued or not. At this point, I would like to show the next clip, a very specific sequence. were no trailers back then, but this is a sequence that he could have used to make a trailer if he wanted to, because all that he said in his two-pager, the first 7 minutes, was also was in there in this building of an igloo. So, as we see, he kept his promise, and this is why we have seen it, because it demonstrates exemplary the filmmaker's honesty. Sound, please, from the beginning.
You ever feel like you're waiting for something to happen?
It pains me to see you embarrass your father.
But you don't know what it is. You're in, or you're out. That thing that could make your life special. You're in, or you're out. You're in, or you're out.
How can I tell you if I'm in or I'm out without you telling me the first thing about what I might be in or out of?
This would be something dangerous and very exciting.
This library is home to the most valuable book in the United States.
$12 million. You really need to see how easy this is going to be.
Oh, you know this from all your previous ice?
Can I just say how dumb this entire thing is?
How do you know no one's gonna get hurt?
I don't want you waking up years from now wondering what could have happened and who you could have been.
Are you sure you're okay?
Oh, this is my life. This isn't some game.
Can you please not touch the model? Thanks. Let's do this.
The trailer of American Animals, that is a new, written and directed by Bart Layton. I've seen it 3 weeks ago, and I was amazed and impressed. It's the history of 4 young men who tried to rob precious books from the university library. And the film isn't based on a true story. The film is the truth story, because we can see that also in the opening credits that happen. Throughout the film, we can see the 4 real-life protagonists, how they comment and they explain their story. So we have one part of the film is a docudrama, and in the other part, we have the real robbers who are trying to say, yes, I was very young then, and I was stupid, or yes, we thought that we would. So they explain the story as it is performed by their screen alter egos. It's fantastic. That is a marvelous fusion of fiction and reality. I believe it's masterfully directed by Bart Layton, and I'm confident that this film will definitely spark a new round of discussions in the community about the definition of documentary. It started with it, and the way we treat truth and reality. In my opinion, Bart Layton created a new genre. I define it as fusion documentary, and I think this could be a very interesting way of how we could treat our stories. It would be great if we can, if this fusion documentary goes down in filmic history as a FLAHERTIANA invention. That would be great. Let's get back to the trailer. I believe this one was very catchy. It's but it is can be deadly expensive, and the reason we want it is to attract money and not to spend money we don't have. Exactly, because you don't need a trailer, you need a teaser. You need a short clip that can imply your talent, show the way you want to tell your story, impress the investor, fundraiser, helper, and persuade your co-production partner. This is why it is important to distinguish between trailer and teaser. We've seen many teasers yesterday trying to be trailers. That is not possible. That is not possible. It is, many times it is much better to have a real 3 or 4 good shots, like with steady camera. You don't win a co-producer when you show shaky iPhone images or videos on a cloudy day. On the contrary, so it's better to have less, because less is more. So you saw the building of the igloo by Robert Flaherty, 1922, in the snow, and the shots are steady. Think of your teasers yesterday. So it is important to show content and to persuade that you have the artistic ability and the filmic ability to make something good. That is very, very important. There are, of course, many risks in the production of what we call a good trailer. I don't think that we have the time to go into details, but generally speaking, don't make promises that you can't keep. And that brings us to the first don't of a co-production. Don't start a co-production discussion without a teaser. Equipped with a carefully thought 2-pager and a teaser, then yes, you can start thinking of a co-production. But not all projects are suitable for co-production. So the first thing you should do is develop a co-production strategy. Read your 2-pager again and let the project guide you. Make a list of countries that could be interested for you. Strictly content orientated. And then try to explain the reasons in order to facilitate your partner, because your co-production partner might not be fully aware of all the aspects, although he or she should be after carefully studying the carefully prepared 2-pager. So it is in the project's own interest to unveil all hidden possibilities, all the things you could do, all the things you could reveal with your film. Don't go the other way around. Don't start by listing the countries that are famous for supporting documentaries. That's not enough. A certain relevance should be there. You need to have a relevant subject matter with the country before approaching the country. Please don't go the other way around. Let's see the next clip, please, which is a showcase of a successful co-production, a masterpiece directed by Sturla Gunnarsson.
Ja, der Monsun beginnt.
Der Monsun ist ein Klimaphänomen, das in Indien Jahr für Jahr auftritt. Für manch einen ist es das größte Schauspiel auf Erden. Andere sehen in ihm das Sinnbild des Lebens. Aber beginnen wir von vorne. Dieser Film erzählt die Geschichte meiner Reise durch Indien, von den Ufern des Indischen Ozeans bis zu den Ausläufern des Himalaya, auf den Spuren des Monsuns. Alles nimmt seinen Anfang im Mai, wenn sich die Trockenzeit ihrem Ende nähert. Bald ist er da, der Monsun. Ich kann die feuchtheiße Luft spüren, die vom Arabischen Meer herströmt. Der Monsun kommt jedes Jahr wieder. Wie ein Gott alter Zeiten, der Chaos und Zerstörung bringt, aber auch Leben schafft. Ich durfte dieses Phänomen beobachten, von dem einige behaupten, es sei die Seele Indiens. Meine Reise beginnt in den Lagunen von Kerala. Dort, ganz unten im Südwesten Indiens, bin ich einem 12-jährigen Mädchen namens Akila begegnet.
Monsoon or Muson is for me an example of a successful co-production, and but needs to be explained. This film was produced and screened by Arte. Arte is a French-German broadcaster with quality program. So we've seen a French film with German voiceover, because that is also Arte's peculiarity. All films, the program is common in the two countries, and there is, whatever language the film is, there is a French voiceover in France and a German voiceover in Germany. Then we discussed about the relevance before. When you see the opening credits, you see Arte France, Point du Jour, Canada. You see everybody, but a German production company or a German broadcaster. My colleague Jörg Lange will talk about it in his lecture, but that is a bizarre thing. Although the subject matter is the monsoon, which affecting climate change. That is the global theme number one. That is the most, I mean, that concerns everybody from Donald Trump until every filmmaker. That is a major issue for Chancellor Merkel, climate change. She is on it. And yet, they did not manage to get a German broadcaster on board. Still, even if it was for Arte Deutschland, for a German channel, it was broadcasted 2015, same time in France and Germany. An example of a world co-production, because the subject, the topic is, okay, it is Indian. It is the Muson is the rain in India and in Southeast Asia, but it affects climate change, so it's something that everybody would like to see. Everybody. It is directed by Sturla Gunnarsson, who is also a cosmopolitan director, ready to deal with global issues. He's from Iceland, but he lives in Canada, and he's famous for treating global subjects in a way for the world audience. That is really an expensive example.
冇幾多個人識得我嘅，除咗休息日，每日朝早我都見唔到老公同個仔嘅。呢啲唔正常嘅日子終於要結束啦，因為我要退休啦。今晚係我最後尾一班車啦。同埋今晚呢，我就終於可以退休啦。我希望喺今晚見到啲熟客同佢哋打聲招呼講聲，以後都可能冇乜機會再見面啦。畢竟呢班人係好熟嘅，只不過平時日日坐車都係打聲招呼，唔敢點樣講嘢。今晚呢，我就要必須同佢哋講聲，我退休啦，拜拜啦。本嚟我係開日班嘅，後嚟我仔讀書啦，我就為咗照顧佢，所以我就做夜班車，可以照顧佢同埋個家庭。
首先呢，就覺得退休係一件好開心嘅事情，但係佢檢查咗身體之後呢，咁一身都係職業病，我聽到真係好心酸，但係我覺得無能為力，所以佢而家退休，我希望佢調理翻個身體。
其實都冇咩大病嘅，只不過係頸椎啊、腰椎啊、膝頭哥啊嗰啲有啲痛咯。如果唔開車，我哋做唔到咩嘢，我又唔識去炒更。18歲就嚟呢度啦，嗰時候啲女司機好少，而家都唔係多啊。你問我點解要開車？我覺得開車唔使諗咁多嘢，開嚟開去，開夠幾多個圈就落班啦，擺低部車就可以走得啦。20幾年前，自己第一日開呢部公交車嗰時，真係有啲驚㗎，因為自己開咁大部車出嚟個馬路度轉嚟轉去，嗰時真係驚㗎。晚晚都睇到佢哋上車落車，仲有啲上錯車嘅。因為我哋司機係唔可以同人哋傾偈嘅，加上平時我都唔中意同嗰啲唔熟嘅人傾偈。呢個時候坐車人都好攰㗎啦，咩人都有，有加班嘅，有夜場嘅，有飲酒嘅，有趕火車嘅，佢哋都好辛苦㗎。鋪床啦。做夜班車，中間有2個鐘休息嘅，我哋個個揸緊時間瞓覺嘅喺部車度。冬天呢就好凍，凍到瞓唔着。到夏天呢，嗰啲蚊又多，又唔可以開空調嚟瞓覺。男女都係一樣㗎啦，都喺部車度瞓，唔會話特別照顧女司機嘅。廣州其實係個不夜城，晚黑都好熱鬧嘅。我哋嘅頭班車4點半開出嚟呢，嗰馬路上已經有好多車㗎啦，坐車嗰啲人都唔少啦。多數都係啲出租車司機啊、公交司機啊，同埋嗰啲見面嘅老人啊，做小生意嘅，仲有嗰啲服務員啊，都好早起身嘅要。 呢啲咪就係我講嗰啲熟人咯。
拜拜啦喎，我退休啦喎，拜拜啦喎。我只跟着一个阿姨说嘛，她说：“哎呀，好了，你有听到吗？就在红德路上那个，就站在这里。”我也不敢跟她多聊。她说：“哎呀，好了好了，你们也太辛苦了，我知道这一行太辛苦，你没听到啊？可能你听不懂了，你把这。”啊，今晚點解唔見個醉貓坐車嘅咧？唔知係點解唔見咗佢。以前晚晚都見到佢。呢個人啊50零歲啦，成日都飲到醉醺醺。上車咧就好想同我傾偈，但我就唔中意同佢傾偈，因為佢等到忽一忽下。啊，今日冇見到佢喎，唔知係咪今日唔飲酒咧？唉。呢啲人就係咁噶啦，唔想見佢嗰時啊見到佢，想見下佢啦，就見唔到佢啦。好，拜拜啦！拜拜啦！慢慢啦。可以去玩啦。係啊係啊。又開心又。係啊！唔捨得你哋啊！拜拜拜拜。我都唔捨得你啊！真係啊！唔捨得你哋啊！退休誒，見你講得好似個靚女咁。車卡坐到而家喎，你哋。係嘛？俾個電話我，得閒請你飲茶。唔知唔覺10幾年啦。多謝多謝。阿爸咧，俾個電話我，恭喜你136。多謝嚇。13610。一齊飲茶。好啊好啊好啊好啊。13610。飲茶啊！13610229894。22994。想下先嚇。好啊。都一齊飲茶啊！多謝你哋啊！飲下午茶。知唔過係10幾年啦。響啦係嘛？響啦響啦。得啦得啦，到時打電話都約你哋啊！一齊啊！飲下午茶。多謝你先喎。多謝多謝。未有空調車坐到而家啊！你身體健康。車卡坐到而家㗎啦。拜拜。呢幾個真係要請佢飲茶㗎，10幾年利是我就到佢。仲有個零鐘，我開埋部車翻去，擺低咧就可以落班啦。天都光啦，翻屋企好好地瞓翻覺。你問我瞓到幾點起身，我唔知㗎喎，瞓到醒咪起身咯。退休之後，我要慢慢咁適應呢啲嘅正常嘅瞓覺時間。唉，終於可以唔使做啦，唔使做啦。阿攝影師，幫我影張相啊！因為以前從嚟都冇諗過話要影相留念，覺得好似日日上班冇咩好拍啫咁。我放在袋裡。行了，沒事，拿住。夜晚嘅廣州同日頭嘅廣州差別梗係好遠啦。日頭嗰啲商鋪開晒門。人來人往，好多人。晚黑嗰啲商鋪關晒門，人少咗好多啊嘛。退休之後，我想去旅遊下。北京去過啦，不過好多人。想去下上海啊，杭州嗰邊，因為上海都係大都市。如果有機會出國旅遊呢，我首選去加拿大，因為嗰邊人比較少。
16年嘅夜班車司機啦。我叫伍潔平。
So that is a very touchy story. Last day of work in her life, and local, and yet the film was adored, appreciated, awarded globally. The reason why we see it here, it is because it is a very good example of a successful low-budget international co-production. There were 4 countries involved, China, Germany, Greece and the United Kingdom. And it is also a typical example of how a script can be written 3 times, because this film was conceived, shot and edited within 14 days. So, first we developed a 2-pager, and then we were confronted with reality, because many of the things that we wanted to do simply were impossible. For example, our protagonist could not, they had a change in the schedule and she could not come the night we agreed. And we were in pressure to deliver and all that, and yet, okay, then we did that. So we adapted the script to the reality, and then came the edit. The edit that was a Babel Tower, because as many of the participants were Chinese, half of them were speaking in Mandarin and the other half in Cantonese. This is why you have the many subtitles. So in terms of translating and subtitling, that was really an achievement that we could deliver on time. So this is an example that, okay, we can make co-productions and films like American Animals, like the ones we've seen, which is, I believe, has a budget of $1.8 million. So it is a very cheap movie for their standards. But we can also make films with a significantly lower budget. Many people say that a co-production is like a marriage. It is not, and it is certainly not a happy marriage, and not a happy marriage between 2 committed artists, as many people say. Trust me, it's rarely the case. Both the 2 films we have showcased before, Mousson and The Last Night Bus, take pride in the many co-producers, broadcasters and institutions from around the world. We need more than one partner if we want to meet the high standards of the international market. So a co-production is a common enterprise, a union of entrepreneurs, filmmakers, a joint venture, everything but a marriage. Welcome to the show business, we said in part 1. There's no business like show business is part 2. Consider this before, during and after the film. Include in your strategy what you will offer, how far you will go. Quid pro quo. Don't expect to gain only. Be prepared to give, to negotiate and to reach an agreement like in any other business. That presupposes clear ownership proportions. By the time you start negotiating with your partner or partners, your role in the film should be clearly defined. There should be a split of responsibilities, as we discussed before, a strict one like we do when we shoot a feature film. Again, this is not because of some artistic bigotry, it is because contracts and agreements can be reached only when equals talk, only when you have a common agenda. Otherwise, you will not come to an agreement. You don't achieve a common goal. And this is art. This is not a treaty between nations. There is a common agenda, similar interests, and a realistic and honest communication flow can be established. Only because otherwise, if you don't keep this, I wouldn't call it hierarchy, but anyway, if you don't let equals talk, then you lose the communication flow, you lose the follow-up. Then talk with everybody, pitch your project well, anywhere, but negotiate with your counterparts only, not just to anyone who has money or influence, or you think he has money or influence. You can offer only what you possess or what you represent. So this is why copyright issues are important. There is intellectual property, a very odd form of property, and that is your right to be mentioned and to be the creator of your artwork. You cannot abandon it, donate it, or transfer it. At least not in Europe. You can do that in the US. And then there is the exploitation of copyright. Deriving from it, the exploitation can be donated, abandoned, and can be subject of any commercial transaction. And this is also a practice that we have in the European Union in order to get funds and supports from the European Union programs such as Creative Europe, Age 2020. You must be in full possession of the rights. You must be the owner of the project. That means if you are a producer, you need to have evidence of the transfer of rights. And this transfer of rights is significantly for the situation that it is at the moment in Europe. Recently, and that is because the situation we had in the past, that the ownership was also with the creative person, the director. We had this situation because we had broadcasters in movie theaters, which is not the case anymore. We have now we have the new situation. We have the majors: Amazon, YouTube, Netflix, and so we have many more players. We had a very interesting development in the European Parliament recently regarding all those giant technologies. I'm sure Kai Vesnik will inform about you in his lecture, because he was following it. But copyrights and legal issues are really important. For example, shooting with children. As I've seen in your pictures, you have many projects with children. You need to have rights. It needs to be clear who is allowing the child to participate in the movie, and to which extent, in what usage. It's not so simple. It's not just that, okay, we know somebody, we go and we film. That is YouTube, familiar, funny film. We are making films. So we need to have an approval. A legal issue is very, very important. You need to be clear on these legal issues before you start co-producing, before you start negotiating what will happen, what will not. Don't see your co-production partner as the one who brings money. So, like, you do the film and the other one pays you. No, there's no such thing, there never was. There's nobody's obligation to buy our films. No, we have to convince them, and we have to be fair, and we have to give, to invest. You may call it how you want, but we need to be very, very specific on what it is what we give and what it is we expect. Whatever your designated position is, elaborate it as good as you can, ask questions, articulate your doubts, be persistent, be there, get inspired, follow your vision, believe in your dreams, and make us believe in you. Thank you very much for your attention on this Sunday morning. At your disposal for lively discussion, questions, whatever you want. Is it English or?
English.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for very useful lecture. Спасибо в первую очередь за.
Thank you for coming.
Okay. Can we talk about, I don't know, some kind of tendency of fashion? What topics or issue are most, not most, on the top for co-production? Is it politic or economic or ethnographic?
My opinion is that a filmmaker should follow what he or she thinks it is important, and not to follow a tendency. We briefly mentioned a contracted production before. So the truth is, we don't know what the tendency is. Nobody knows. The tendency is for let's say, for the state broadcaster of Iran, the tendency is current affairs. For Netflix is a good series, and for YouTube is funny videos. So there is no such thing as a global tendency. Certainly there are matters that interest more people, but in which country, in which age group? So no, there is no tendency. A millennial in Russia is another target group than a farmer in Nebraska. You have many broadcasters, they're all trying to please the customers, and our audience is very different, and we are trying to please it. So the only way to deal with this is to do what we think is best and what is interesting for us, and then having done this, then yes, we can talk with a distributor or somebody who knows the market or who thinks he knows the market, to distribute it, to place it. But I wouldn't dare to say this is number one. Okay, like in Monsuna said, yes, okay, this is the subject matter is related to the climate change. Yes, I'm sure that that would have been highly interesting for a German broadcaster. Nothing happened. But they appreciate the result so much that the film was to be seen in the Deutsche Welle for 2 or 3 times as the masterpiece. I don't know. I'm not a broadcaster, I cannot judge it. But as an advice, be Be careful to people who claim, okay, that is the tendency, do that, and you will get support, and you are caught up in something that is not interesting for you. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.